Radio City Talk, top of the hour, top of the tower. Joined by, it's Andy Heaton in for Neil Atkinson. I'm joined by Gareth Roberts, Jamie Braidwood, and the inimitable John Gibbons.
Is that a good thing? I don't know what that word means, but if it's good, I'm here.
Where did the day toilet paper, mate? Where did the day toilet paper? Yeah, my dad always takes the mick when he used to put big words in me copy and all that. Goes, where did you learn that? Anyway, let's get into it. Liverpool face West Brom tomorrow, and the main talk has been all about Tony Pulis. Been looking at it today, put this round the room, but there's a quote from the Birmingham Mail there from Paul Stewart, who said, "Garish, classless and uncalled for." I thought he was talking about West Brom's manager, but it turned out he was talking about Jurgen Klopp. But more of that later. We're going to start the show with some fallout from earlier in the game, some Man United reaction, and just to put a lid on it, Jurgen Klopp's refusing to get involved with Jose Mourinho, Gareth.
Quite right. You know what? I think what Klopp said was absolutely spot on. The game's finished, and we don't need to continue with this. You know, this clown's antics, really. I mean, we all know what Mourinho does. He tries to get under your skin. He tries to be the wrestling baddie, if you like. And it's pointless. Liverpool have played Man United. We've finished the game. We got a 1-1. We got a 0-0 draw. Sorry, not the result we were looking for or the performance we were looking for, but it's finished. You know, it's all about West Brom now, and it's all about looking up, moving on, and getting engaged in some kind of battle through the media with him. There's just no point in it. I mean, he loves all that sort of thing. He's done it with Wenger. He's done it with Ferguson. He'll do it with anyone. He'll take him on, and he loves getting his face in the paper, and he loves getting the headlines. It's of no benefit to Liverpool, so Klopp's moved on, and quite right.
He was said, the actual quote that Klopp gave to journalists was that I learned pretty early in my career that you cannot win the game after it's finished. We have a point. It felt positive because it's one more than we had before the start of the game. John, do you tend to agree with that, or?
Yeah, just agree with what Gareth said. I think for some managers, I think the perception of them is as important as the results they get. And I think so. You see that a lot of the stuff Mourinho has come out with since then, I don't think it's necessarily a dig at Liverpool or Klopp. It's all about protecting his own reputation and saying, well, actually, they were defensive, not us. Oh, we had to go. Oh, look at this compared to this. And it's all about he protected the perception of him, and so a lot of these mind games are, and you see quite a lot of managers do it, and Klopp just doesn't seem that bothered. You don't get the impression he's that bothered what anyone else thinks of him, really. He just wants to be, as long as he's enjoying his job, as long as he feels like he's got the respect of his players that he's working under, and as long as he feels like he's got the relationship with the fans, I don't think he's sort of that bothered, really, and that's quite refreshing when you just see so many football managers, always trying to protect themselves. And look, I understand it, because you're always 2 or 3 games from the sack and from the media saying, oh, you've lost it and things like that. So I understand why managers do it, but you just sense with Jurgen Klopp that you just can't be bothered with the whole thing, and kind of whatever will be, will be.
Jamie?
Yeah, there's no need to respond, really. So Klopp sensibly has done the right thing and just ignored it. I think Klopp, like a lot of us, has just got completely fed up with Mourinho's comments and trying to antagonise people, and there's just no need to rise up to that at all.
I forgot to do opening questions, so there's a nice little bridge here. Dave Brownrigg has asked for the opening question: which is your favourite Pulis, the Welsh one or the Portuguese?
Is that a Mourinho thing?
I'm presuming it. Yeah,
I don't mind Tony Pulis. He's got a press conference today. We haven't seen it yet. I know Gareth was having a bit of a look to see if there's any comments. Do you know what? I imagine...
You might be fuming with them later.
I imagine he'll just play it all down. Last year they had a bit of a spat or whatever. It will be. Tony Pulis is all right. And Rafa likes him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And if Rafa likes him, then he's all right with me.
Yeah, I'm with the actual Tony Pulis rather than the pantomime Portuguese version. Still, I like some of the stories that go around about Pulis. Not least the James Beattie one.
We're on the radio.
Yeah, do give that a Google and join the dots yourself. I'm not sure about the cap, and I'm not sure about the white trainees. But, he seems to be pulling it off. Someone somewhere likes his fashion, including himself. But, no, I quite like him. I think he does what he does. You know what he's about. He gets results at the level that he's getting, if you know what I mean. He's probably never going to manage a big club. He's the man that you turn to if you want to stay in the league, if you want to get the most out of your resources and all that sort of thing. And I think he does all that well. So, yeah, fair play to him.
Go on then.
Yeah, there was
Pulis or Jose.
after Pulis's, I think it was his 1,000th game in charge. There was a montage in Match Today of just sort of his funniest moments, and it was actually quite funny. So I'm the same.
1,000 games.
Yeah, he's
Tony
managed.
Pulis has managed 1,000 games.
He has, yeah.
It's a lot of caps, that.
It is a lot of caps, yeah.
A lot of white trainees.
But that montage of his sort of interviews after games was actually quite funny. So yeah, I don't mind Pulis at all. Just his football.
Oh, fair enough. So just staying with Klopp and some of the comments he's made, there's been a lot of talk this week, John, about Loris Karius.
Yes.
And it seems, to all intents and purposes, that he's laid the marker down and Klopp's backed him as his clear number one. You haven't been that encouraged?
No, he's not been very good so far. I think that's quite plain to see. It's whether it's whether you're hopeful that he's going to improve. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp is. He said that he's been. I don't know what his exact quote was about how good he's been so far. He said, he's been excellent or something. I think that's to be viewed along his similar praise of the Burnley performance. I think in Jurgen Klopp's kind of the way he likes to paint certain things as positive. I mean, look, he's been poor, and I think everyone kind of knows that really. But it's whether you think that a change of keeper needed to be made at that time, I don't necessarily think it did, but Jurgen Klopp disagreed. He's made it, and I think now he's obviously in the situation where he does have to stick with him. I hope that he genuinely believes he will improve quickly, because he is going to need to, because he's not been tested a huge amount yet, and the things that he has been tested on haven't looked great. And you worry about, in terms of Tony Pulis, you talk about his style of play. I think they're going to target him at the weekend if they get chances to, if they get opportunities to. I mean, it depends how much West Brom get the ball, but I think and Palace coming up will be the same, and there's going to be some big tests. So you just. There's obviously a talented keeper there, because he did well in Germany, and they've brought him in. So you just hope he can get his head sorted sooner rather than later. So
I haven't been so unequivocal in backing Karius. Gareth, nearly called you Jurgen then.
I'll take that.
Should that now be the end of the debate, or is it kind of, is it helpful to carry on the discussion?
Not really for me. I don't really get it. I think the important thing that's come out for me this week in terms of what Klopp said about the goalkeeper is that they watched them for 2 years. It's not sort of an off-the-cuff decision. This is a long decision that, they've done the due diligence, if you like, on this goalkeeper. And okay, he's had a couple of flaps at crosses. There's been little questions over decision making in a couple of his Liverpool appearances so far. But I mean, I don't actually think we've seen that much of him. I mean, if you actually think of the number of saves he's been asked to make, it's not many, and we've not really seen that much of him yet. Yeah. So to sort of make to start sort of, I don't know, flapping about it really and saying, he's not the man and we've bought a dud and all this. It's just far too early for that. I mean, we've seen before goalkeepers go to clubs, big clubs, and it get in their heads a little bit. I mean, it's a new defence. He's got to get used to what the back four is doing when he's coming for things, when they're going to get when they're going to get the ball, all that sort of thing. That understanding only comes by playing games together. So for me, he stays in goal. Klopp said that, and we just stick with him and get behind him. And I think let's not destroy a goalkeeper by doing oohs and ahs at the ground every time. He might make a little mistake. Let's get behind the lad and see what he can do.
I mean, do you think there's parallels there? I mean, we had a little chat about it on a show earlier in the week on Tour Player. Great value, get it, subscribe.
£5 a month.
Fantastic. About a couple of things, really. The comparison there's been a lot of the time in the press with De Gea, when really De Gea is 19, with Karius is a couple of years old. He's actually pretty much the same age as Pepe Reina, when Pepe Reina signed for Liverpool. And he didn't have the best of starts, and he didn't have the threat of being dropped on top of him straight away either. So, it does take time.
It's a different position, isn't it? I mean, goes without saying. I think, goalkeepers, you make a decision like this, and for me, if you kept on chopping and changing, people are talking about putting Mignolet back in and stuff like that. I think you've got to stick with the lad, because if you take him out again, that just says to him, no matter what words come out your mouth, that says to him, you've made some horrendous mistakes and I already don't trust you, I'm taking you out now. He's got to stick with him. He's got to show that he trusts him. He trusts him in terms of he's already, he's paid the money, he's brought him in. He's got to trust him again and leave him in goal now. And so much of football, as I always say, is mental, is about being in the right place with your mind. And I think, Klopp more than anyone, I think, knows that. I think a lot of his management is based around mentally getting people in the right place. And, he needs Karius to mentally be in the right place.
Yeah, I would agree with Gareth that we just haven't seen a lot of Karius yet. And I think Karius, more than anyone, is probably desperate just to get a save to make, let alone anything else. And until then, there's not really much that we can look at. And
I think there are things you can look at. Because they're not just shot stoppers, are they? And if they were, then we wouldn't be talking about replacing Mignolet.
Yeah,
I think what's for frustrated fans is that all the things that people moan about Mignolet, you were expecting Karius to be better at one of them, and on crosses he actually looks worse so far. He looks a bit better with his feet, but then he passed the Paul Pogba on Monday, and so I think that's what's frustrating fans is that well, what have we actually done here? What have we gone out? What problems have we gone out and solved? Arguably, we've actually created a bit of a problem for ourselves by swapping a goalkeeper who was doing okay after 4 games.
To round up the end of it, we talk about Liverpool problems. One of them historically has been beating a Tony Pulis side. I will have more of that in part 3, but right now we're going to go into the break. And for part 2, we had a little chat with Rangnick Lung Answers and about her book, Liverpool Captains.
This is Neil Atkinson back, sort of intruding in the rest of the gentlemen's shows, but I'm away in Las Vegas when this is going out, so I hope I'm having a lovely time, but I hope you are as well this evening, Liverpool, and anyone listening on the podcast. This is the Anfield Wrap. I'm Neil Atkinson, as I said, and this is Ranhild Ansnes. We've just been working on my pronunciation, and I think I nailed it that time. Is that fair?
Oh, that was perfect.
Absolutely glorious stuff. And Jamie Braidwood as well. I'm backing myself on that one, Jamie. Is that fair?
You did very well there, Neil, yeah.
Thank you very much. Jamie has written, by the time you listen to this, Jamie will have written it. It'll be out in the Anfield Wrap. A feature about Liverpool captains and looking at Jordan Henderson off the basis of Ranhild's terrific book, which is called Liverpool Captains: A Journey of Leadership from the Pitch. Why did you decide to do captains next?
You know what? I thought I was done, but I've been working now for 8 years writing about Liverpool Football Club and what football is really doing to us, how football is interacting to our lives. And I'd done the supporters and I'd done the players and I thought that was it. But the more you know about something, the more you want to know and the more you realise you don't know. And I was just really, really curious about the captaincy. Has it got any relation to business in general, the middle manager? But most of all, football has changed so much, and that's what I've realised studying Liverpool so in depth over all these years. And I was wondering, what about the captain? Has he changed?
And that comes through in the book. I mean, just to run through this, you've spoken to the following. I'll do all 16 very, very quickly. Ron Yates, Tommy Smith, Phil Thompson, Graham Souness, Phil Neal, Ronnie Whelan, Glenn Hussein, Mark Wright, Ian Rush, John Barnes, Paul Ince, Jamie Redknapp, Robbie Fowler, Sammy Hippier, Jamie Carragher and Stephen Gerrard. And what comes through is the fact that it has changed. I think that's the interesting thing here, is that there's now so many other commitments around it. That's definitely there in the practical sense, but also almost in the middle management sense as well. You feel as though it's now, it's a difficult lever scenario that you end up with as a player here who's got to try and commune between these different interests, whereas when it was just 11 lads together, etc., it feels like it was more straightforward. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's just no doubt that the captaincy is more important now than it ever have been before because, the lack of loyalty, all those international players with so many different languages, such high rotation on the team, and just the fact that, as a captain, you need to pull everybody in one direction, not just on the pitch, but every day, really, in the club life. And being a captain of the modern football gives you a lot of challenges, because one thing is to captain a big game like Liverpool, Manchester United, and I just thought that was such an interesting side of captaincy too. All the captains said it's very, very easy to motivate players for that big rivalry of a game. Yeah. But it's just all those other games, isn't it, where you need to explain for the Brazilians, for the Finns, how important every single game is for a Liverpool supporter and for the club.
And it's that burden of responsibility that a lot of the players talk about when you interview them. And some of the players, like Sammy Hippier, he said that he went through spells as captain where it really had a negative effect on his performance. And it wasn't until that he was relieved of that duty that he started to play better again. I mean, did that really strike you, that sort of the burden that they talked about?
Yeah, well, they were so different. They are 16 totally different individuals. And Phil Thompson was actually assistant manager when Sami was struggling with his performance because he just took too much responsibility on. He just made it too serious.
And of course, Phil had been through that himself.
Exactly, so he just recognised so much of himself. But then you've got the others like Graham Souness who said, you know what, captain or not, I didn't bother. I played and I took the same amount of responsibility because back in the days, it was expected of you. You had to take that amount of responsibility. Every single of the 11 out there had to play as a captain and act like a captain and take full responsibility of making sure that those guys around you played as good as possible. And if one or two were struggling around you, you made sure to help them pick up their game or help them out a bit during those weak spells. So, it's an interesting thing.
The one that struck out to me, and as I go through that list there, it stands out again. But you'd sort of forgot about Glenn Hussein. And I'm really intrigued by Glenn Hussein, the chap, because Glenn comes across like, and you've had the pleasure of interviewing him here, and he's so larger than life. And indeed, that you get the impression that's why he ended up with the armband, was that, you get the impression there's no dressing room, there's no room in the world that if Glenn Hussein's in, you wouldn't know he was there. And that really comes across that, he's. But it is intriguing that, that Glenn Hussein, who signed for the club in '89, doesn't have any degree of a long career at Liverpool, but ends up for a lot of the games he plays for Liverpool, and even as his own legs are beginning to wane, his own powers are on the wane because the personality. He captains Liverpool a fair few times. I was really surprised to read that, really, and it's something that just completely disappeared out of my mind.
I know, and also remember he came in such a difficult time. He came in straight after Hillsborough, and he hadn't been through Hillsborough, but he was there to help the guys out, and with that fun character he is as well. I mean, I don't think I've interviewed anybody who swears more than Glenn Hussein, and I actually had to leave in a bit of swearing there because that's really who he is. But he was such a I think a great extra bonus for the players when they came with his personality and his style of playing.
But he almost feels like he almost felt, he says himself in the chaps that you have with him, that he almost felt like when it was offered to him, it almost felt like it didn't seem right. But all the players went, "No, it's you. That's fine. We're all happy. It's you. You're going to do it." And it's quite an interesting thing, this idea that he's going, "I don't quite understand how I've ended up doing this," but they're all like, "No, it's emphatically you, Glenn. Run on with it now."
Yeah, but he some people are more or less born leaders. It's like Steven Gerrard the same. He got the captaincy so young because he was just one of those. You're just sort of beaming leadership and responsibility and motivation out of you, and you can take it. And sometimes you don't have to serve almost your whole career before you get the honour of having the armband like Phil Neal did. Sometimes it's the most obvious thing that you will be the next captain because you are such a captain material.
A lot of the chapters are quite personal. Paul Ince in particular, his background is quite a personal story. How did you manage to get some of the players to open up to you in a way that maybe they hadn't done in previous interviews?
Well, that's a good question because both with Paul Ince and Jamie Redknapp, for example, none of them have shared their personal story before. They haven't done an autobiography, they haven't done a documentary. And with Paul Ince, when he started talking, and I wasn't aware of his background, because obviously it wasn't out there. The hair was standing on my arms for 4 hours, and I'm not joking. I even froze on my cheekbones eventually because that's when it's really powerful. And it comes down to writing about Liverpool and being so dedicated, working with Liverpool for so many years, because now, after working with my heart and not just to try to make any money, but just really, really wanting to find answers on things and document sides of the club. So many of the ex-players came out and helped me, and they opened so many doors for me. And they did that because they've been happy with what I've done for the club in the future. So a lot of the other ex-captains convinced the like of Souness and Redknapp and Ince and others who are pretty shy. Steven Gerrard, for example. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
You mentioned it, that they convince one another. There appears to be a genuine level of affection between each of them. You know, you when you write the book, you take a quote as to what one said about the other from the start. But in general, there does appear to be a genuine sort of across the board there, a genuine level of affection from the ones who've shared dressing rooms. You know, Carragher and Gerrard on Fowler as an example, and Fowler conversely. You know, that they've all gone through this, and I think that's something that we. Outside of football, we find it difficult at times to sort of understand how dressing rooms work and how this works. But there is genuine affection there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And remember, so many of these players and these captains actually grew up under another captain. And the whole idea of the Liverpool way is just to pass on knowledge. And I was amazed even from understanding Steven Gerrard, how much he has done for young players. You wouldn't even think that that's what the modern captains would do. But, you know, the amount of work Steven Gerrard has been putting in behind the scenes for the club before he left, I was really amazed how he has been helping young players, how he's been calling up players that the club want to sign, etc., etc. Amazing.
We need to also mention that the two opening chapters are quite poignant as well. Obviously, with Ron Yates and Tommy Smith, they're struggling with Alzheimer's. What was it like to interview them?
Heartbreaking, just absolutely heartbreaking. If there's one little thing that I hope will come out of this book, it is more awareness around the 60s boys and what they actually sacrificed for the game. And I'm hoping with all the money floating in football that they should get some more of that. A tiny little bit more support financially to have a decent life within the dementia, because so many of the 60s boys are heavily affected, and that's not just because they're aging, not at all. It's because of those heavy leather balls and because of that physical game that they played and bashed into each other's heads, etc. And with both Ron Yates and Tommy Smith, I had their best mates to come along with me, so Ian St. John sat with us for Ron Yates' chapter, and Chris Lawler came and sat with me together with Tommy's daughter Jeanette for his chapter. Plus, I had the privilege to interview Tommy before he got as ill as he is now, because now he can't hardly put two words together. And when I left him and his home, and I write this as I end this chapter, and I physically cried when I wrote the ending of his chapter. I wrote, well, maybe I can even read it out. It's just so heartbreaking, because Tommy's been one of those who's been in my books, you know, my last book, and I've really admired him for being so much into football. He's like such a proper old school captain and a Liverpoolian. But yeah, this is what I'm writing at the end here. I said, Tommy Smith sees us out like he has always been seeing out his guests. He takes my hand and gives me a handshake that is less firm than before, then kisses me on the cheek as goodbye. As we drive off, I see Tommy in the window in the hall. He's looking at us open-faced, but his eyes are sad. He lifts his big hand and waves at us. I wave back, and I feel a lump in my throat, thinking, I will never be able to chat with Tommy Smith again. He's gone. Just 70 years old. Football stole him with all his words and stories, with its heavy, wet leather balls. That's tough.
It's really tough. It's really tough. The whole book's really worth reading. There's a number of chapters in there, and as I say, but like a lot of actually recent football books, one of the things I like about it is it doesn't demand that you read it in one sitting. You can go away, come back. I think that's really quite a warm thing, that you get to get these different perspectives over time. So it's terrific. It's on De Coubertin. It's published by De Coubertin. Liverpool Captains: A Journey of Leadership from the Pitch. You happy?
Oh, I'm happy. You know,
made up with it?
I am. It's been a long journey putting it together. 3 years it has taken me to chase all these big names down, and I just hope people can find it motivating, and then I'm happy. I just love doing it, even though it was a bit scary.
Okay, thank you to Jamie, thank you to Dan Hild as ever. This is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. After the break, you'll be back in the hands of John and Andy, and they'll be sorting all sorts of stuff out for you, I'm sure, and looking ahead to West Bromwich Albion. But there's always time to look back on books like these and move from there. Back in a bit.
And we're back. The Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. I'm joined by Andy Heaton. I'm joined by Andy Heaton. I'm joined by John Gibbons, Jamie Braidwood, and the true Scouser, Gareth Roberts. For part three, interesting little chat there with Wrangle. Jamie, you were there. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a great book. It's really interesting insight into Liverpool captains down the years, and it really shows that there are so many different types of captains that we've had, so many different qualities in leadership, and that book really explores all them, and it's also a very personal look at a lot of former Liverpool legends. There are backgrounds into the lives of Paul Ince that I'd never read before that I found really interesting, and it also has a look at Ron Yates and Tommy Smith and what they're currently going through.
So it's worth the read then.
It is worth the read, yeah.
Still about Liverpool captains, Jordan Henderson. He's been in good form this year. Do you reckon we can lead the team out to smash West Brom to bits on Saturday afternoon? Well, Saturday afternoon/evening.
I hope so, mate. Yeah, I mean, I think Henderson's been solid. I think he's, he had a difficult start. I don't think he was the greatest against either Arsenal or Burnley, but I think he's sort of come through that now. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting around the captain's shack, because I still do see people questioning all the time, whether he should be the captain of Liverpool. But what I take more stock in is you see the likes of Steven Gerrard coming out all the time saying he is the right man, he is influential, he can be a good captain. And Steven doesn't have to do that. He's left the club, he's not involved, he's still a Liverpool fan, obviously he still loves the club. But it's that constant backing that he gives all the time to Jordan that says to me, he's seen enough of Henderson, he knows enough of the man to say that he is rightfully the captain of the club. So, I'll get right behind what Stevie said there.
Well, Stevie he said pretty much the same thing to us, didn't he, John, over the summer in the States? That it was the time, everyone to get off his back and get behind Jordan Henderson, because he's got enough about him to pull it off. Yeah,
and it's what Gareth said as well, that he's going further than what you'd think. Like, I asked him a pretty kind of nondescript question. I mean, most of my questions are pretty nondescript, but asked him a bit of a general question about Jordan Henderson, and he really sort of went to the trenches for him, didn't he? When he could have just said, yeah, good to have him back, I hope he has a good season, and so he obviously respects him as a player, respects him as a person, and believes in what he can possibly do, because no one wants to win a league title as much as Steven Gerrard does, you know what I mean? He's fought harder than any of us to try and get a league title to Liverpool. So if he didn't think Jordan was the man, then he wouldn't be coming out with such equivocal statements. And I think what Jamie was saying was right as well. We can get into our heads sometimes with captains that they have to be a certain way, and I think because Gerrard was the captain for so long, everyone's looking for the next Gerrard to captain us, whereas really, what Jamie's saying about the book is we've had lots of different captains and they've all captained in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I always go back. We're getting into a different discussion here. But when Sammy had the armband, he was hardly. I mean, he obviously had the captaincy before Stephen. He was hardly screaming and shouting, but you could never deny that he was a decent leader either. Speaking of aerially dominant centre halves, Joel Matip, he's going to be on his game. Yeah.
I mean, I think there will be a big focus on Joel, because we all know what Tony Pulis is going to do.
Well, hasn't he?
Yeah, it started really well. Yeah, I mean, I was slightly concerned in the summer by one of us. He did an interview about that he was going to Liverpool from Schalke, and he talked about how he'd watch Premier League football, and that off his own back, really, he was going to get himself in the gym because he wasn't sure whether he was strong enough for the league, and that put that sowed a little seed of doubt in my head, really. And I just thought, is he going to be one of these centre halves that comes over here and is too easily bullied, because I mean, a lot of stuff's been taken out of the game in terms of being allowed to tackle from behind and all that sort of thing. But I think, if you watch English football compared to some of the continental stuff, you can still get away with more here. I think it is more physical. But he's coped with all that fine. I mean, everyone's talking about, how calm he is and how great he is at sort of bringing the ball out. But I like, surprise, that he's actually quite good at, some of the more needly stuff. He uses his body well, he holds off attackers well, he uses his strength.
He doesn't seem to get flustered either, does
he? No, and I think he's been a good influence for Lovren as well. I mean, you look back that, not so long back, there was almost a weekly conversation about Dejan Lovren and about whether he was good enough. Certainly if you turn to the internet, there was loads of distractors on there. It seems to me that that's quieting down a lot now, and that Lovren as well is sort of quietly getting on with his job. And I wonder whether that's because he's next to Matip, and the way Matip settled in has also helped him as well.
Funny about Lovren, there's some quotes on the Echo Live blog today saying, when Lovren said every game is a win.
Yeah.
We've marked every game down as a win.
Yeah.
I mean, straight listening to things like that, but every time they seem to come out and talk uber positive, and maybe it's just the confirmation bias we've seen to come a cropper.
No, I don't know about that. I think it's something that the manager's trying to install in the team, and I think it's generally a positive. I think it's what Klopp said from the start of the season is that and he said it again this week, we win. You know, you just do that, and I think that's right, and I think that's about trying to install a system where you don't rest on your laurels, and just because you've won 3 games, you don't think, oh, we're all right for a couple now or then. You know, it's this idea if you just win and then you just kind of keep on winning, really. And I think that's something that he's tried to install and he's spoken about. And it's good to see that the players reacting to that, really. And they're not ones to go, we've been on a decent little run. You know, we're boss players now. No, you just go out and win the next one. And that's old school Liverpool, isn't it? That's Ronnie Moran, you know, tossing the medals out in the changing room and saying, same time next year, boys, for pre-season.
Taking Fowler out after he's just scored 5 and all that.
Yeah, that's that sort of thing. That's old school Liverpool to me. When we were winning stuff, that was the attitude. Okay, yes, hand, you won a game, well, then win the next one. And it's the idea that I like what Klopp was saying as well about, you know, not looking at the team you're up against, they're just a team that need beating. And I think that's right as well. And so it's good to see the players talking the same way as the manager, because it just shows what we talked about before about Jurgen Klopp not being a man who just says sound bites for the sake of it. It's the stuff he's saying to the team as well.
But it is a massive challenge though, because last season we a couple of times we come off a big result against the big team, and we stuttered and coughed and splurted a little bit. This run of games, which is perceptibly easier on paper than maybe the start of the season, we've got to treat them with exactly the same respect.
Yeah, it's that next 8 league games, isn't it, that you're mentioning there, that are all seen as winnable games. And yeah, going back to that winning mentality that Jurgen Klopp has spoken about, wanting to build in this Liverpool team, and that just comes through with what Lovren was saying there. As long as Liverpool aren't complacent going into these games, then with that winning mentality, then they should be fired up for it. Yeah.
See, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the West Brom game, it terrifies the life out of me. I'm probably more worried about West Brom than I should be. But Gareth,
it's West Brom.
You think it's been over-exaggerated?
Yeah, I mean, massively so.
Even given Pulis' record against Liverpool, the last league win against one of his teams was back in 2011 under Kenny Dalglish.
I'm not interested. It's West Brom, and we're a good side. And West Brom are coming to Anfield, and they're going to try and get a draw, and that's it. And that's all. And that's happened since time begun. That lower teams come to Anfield, set up in a certain way, do certain things, and then it's up to Liverpool to work that out. But for me, what's interesting about Liverpool so far this season is they've worked quite a lot out. You know, they've faced different types of sides, they've faced different types of tests, and most of the time they've emerged the right side of them and with the points in their hand and having scored goals. So to me, there's a lot of answers with Liverpool now, and people are asking a lot of questions. And I think this comes back to the sort of the doubters and believers thing that Klopp talked about. It feels to me that there's still a huge fear of failure around Liverpool. Not so much around maybe the players and the manager, but certainly among the fans. I mean, I thought the way the atmosphere dropped off after 20 against Man United on Monday, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I was kicking off on people around me. Surprise, surprise again. But I just couldn't believe it. I was like, let's stay behind the lads here. We're all right. We're doing okay. We're still in the game. It's 0-0. Let's not get on the backs. Let's make the atmosphere rocking. And it seems to me that fear of failure still exists within the mindset of a lot of supporters. I suppose you can say rightfully so, because we've waited so long for the title and everything else. But I'd say just get on board with it. Get behind the manager, get behind this team. And go to the game tomorrow thinking we can smash West Brom. Don't be thinking, it's Pulis again. And the minute you see something go wrong on the pitch, all drop, fold your arms, drop your shoulders and everything else. I think the positive mental attitude that we like to see from Klopp and the players will show that yourself as a fan as well, you know what I mean?
Do you not think, though, John, that's a little bit tiny disrespectful to West Brom? I mean, I'm looking at their last 5 results. They're unbeaten in the last 5. They've won 2, drawn 3, including Spurs at home in the last outing at the Hawthorns.
Yeah, they got a bit battered by Spurs. I kind of followed the game a little bit and thought, Spurs have rescued a point there. And then when you watch the highlights back, Tottenham tore them apart first half and were pretty unlucky kind of not to win it, really. It was only because Ben Foster had a worldie, and we were speaking to a West Brom fan on the coach home, which is one of our shows on Tour Player earlier in the week, and he was like,
another one,
and he was like, and he doesn't play like that every week. so he's like, I wouldn't surprise you see him drop a few. I think they've got good results in them, and they're able to spoil you, but they haven't got the level of players that say a Manchester United have. So it'll just be so because Man United were able to kind of frustrate us. It doesn't necessarily mean that the West Brom will be able to, even though I'm sure they'll try to. We just need to raise our game to levels towards we know how they can.
Everton beat them, Bournemouth beat them, Liverpool can beat them,
but Burnley beat Liverpool. Anyway, going back to what you were saying a little bit.
Negative Nari there.
No, just just going back to what you were saying though about it's just West Brom, forget the past. Funny enough, the manager was talking about that a couple of weeks ago when he was saying, I'm not interested in Liverpool's history pretty much, which is a strange thing because we all love to embrace the history and maybe that has been counterproductive at times. Do you think that's?
I think he's fine to embrace the history. I think the point he's making is it doesn't matter how they got on against West Brom 2 years before I was manager. Do you know what I mean? I mean, a lot of the players are new and things like that. And so Joe Matip, you ask, he doesn't care how Liverpool got on against West Brom last year. Do you know what I mean? He's looking at them and I'm sure respecting them as opponents and want to be up for it. But I think Jurgen Klopp's right there. You can look too much into history really, and because it sort of becomes self-fulfilling prophecy really. If you go into games, we've got a bit like that, with Steve Bruce. Like, oh yeah, we never beat Steve Bruce, and then everyone starts saying it, and then if it gets through to the players as well, it can start to get into your heads. I think they're completely right to go. Do you know what? It doesn't matter. It's just another game of football, and they're just another team, and you beat.
But it is, Jamie. It's in contrast to Brendan Rodgers' comments earlier in his Liverpool career about the weight of the shirt. Do you think even just by referencing it, you can actually be making the problem worse?
I'm not sure. Really. I guess what he's just trying to say is when the game kicks off, then as John said, it doesn't really matter what the scoreline was in the previous year, and obviously we have quite a lot of new faces this year in the team. So again, who have also never faced Pulis in a Liverpool shirt before. So yeah, I think what Klopp's just trying to say is let's just go again. We're a new team. We're better equipped now to play against the Pulis team. So don't worry about it, really. I guess.
What's interesting is that he used his press conference again, Klopp, to put a message out to the fans, and he's done this over and over again. And the message was, you can create the atmosphere. Don't worry about what's going on the pitch. You create the atmosphere, and he talks about that all the time. And that's because when manager, players, and fans are on the same page, and we make Anfield special, it's special, and we almost shouldn't worry about it's only West Brom or it's Tony Pulis or anything else. Let's just do our bit in making it special. And I think, Klopp said something the other week about, these are professional footballers, and whatever you're seeing on the pitch, they are trying. They want to win the games. He's got them all mentally in the right place to go out there and win games. And if things aren't coming off, don't slaughter them on what you're seeing. The professional footballers, they want to win the game for Liverpool, and I think they're consistently putting that message out there all the time. I mean, I thought it was notable that he said again about Adam Lallana this week, and he talked about how he's great for Liverpool. He loves playing for Liverpool, and he emphasised what an important player he is. And I think that's, again, he's trying to get in your heads and say, this is a player that should be respected. There's people that have got on his back before, but if you're on his back, he's perhaps not going to perform as well as if you're shouting his name.
All right. So let's going into tomorrow. Clean bill of health, no fitness egg-related issues to deal with. John, what would you go? What's your lineup tomorrow? Do you go? I mean, suppose the only question is really how you sort up front. How do you Sturridge in the goal?
Yeah, it feels 6 from 7, doesn't it? I'd be tempted to play Sturridge just because of the type of game it is, and I think they'll be sitting back, and I think someone with a little bit of stardust, someone who's able, to get a goal at nothing might help you. So I think I'd go with Sturridge in this one. I'd go with Mane and Firmino alongside him, and maybe drop Coutinho back a bit, and then bring Lallana in. And I think Wijnaldum, coming back off the bench isn't the worst thing in the world.
So Milner back at left back.
Yes.
Robbo?
I'd be maybe tempted to keep Sturridge on the bench, just because I think the way Liverpool play and come out the blocks at you and wear you down, if we haven't got that goal that we're going to need for them to change the tactics of anything else, but if we haven't got that goal to then be able to bring Daniel Sturridge on as well when they've already been run ragged for however long, 60 minutes trying to keep us out, if you then bring him on and say, well, here's another half an hour with him to deal with as well, all the best, then I'd do it that way around.
What are you doing, Jamie?
I'd start Sturridge personally.
Who are you leaving out?
I'd drop Chan, bring in Lallana. I think it's probably too soon for Wijnaldum to get back in. But as John said, off the bench, he'll be a good person to bring on, obviously. I've just got a feeling Sturridge hasn't scored in the league this season. I've just got a feeling he'll score this weekend.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. Come towards the end of the hour. Going to go around and get some final score predictions. I'm going to start with... Jamie, go with you first.
I would love a boring 2-0.
Boring 2-0. Gareth, are we going to win by 7 or 8?
I don't want a boring game, by the way. I just, you know what I mean.
A boring 2-0? Yeah, no, I'd take that. Or if you offer me 2-0 regulation, fine with that.
Yeah.
5-0 to Liverpool.
5-0. And
Yeah.
2 back-to-back clean sheets.
5-0 to Liverpool. Yeah, we've sorted the defence now, so another clean sheet. And I went 5-0 for Hull.
And nearly.
I was nearly there, so I'm 5-0 tomorrow.
Scorers?
Firmino hat-trick.
John?
I'll go for 3-0. I'm in between the two.
3-0 Liverpool win.
3-0 Liverpool win. Yeah.
Who's on your betting slip?
For tomorrow, Bobby F.
Bobby F?
Yeah.
Sound. I'm going for a solid Liverpool 4-0 victory, despite all I've said before. Sturridge 2, Coutinho 1, Firmino 1. That's the Anfield wrap. Radio City Talk. Have a great weekend.
Up the top, not Reds.